Hello everyone and welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be taking a look at the cards because some of them have changed, some of them became better, some have become worse, or as some would call more balanced, and we're going to take a look and see what those changes are and what we think of those changes. So let's get into it. First up we have the Gunhorn, the Dungeon Master from the DM faction, who has changed from a 2 attack ranged creature to a 1 attack ranged creature, which doesn't seem like much of a change, but this is pretty important because this is the guy that stays out at the start of the game, and with ranged you can be quite aggressive early on because you know that if you push your guy forward, most things they're going to have early on will have 1 or 2 health, so he's going to wipe the floor with them before they can get any damage on him also being your health points. So it's quite a significant change and we'll see how that plays out. Next we have the Lich, who's also received a nerf. His attack used to be 2, it's now 1, and also his ability has somewhat completely changed. The mechanics of it are very different, but the same kind of theme going on there still exists. So instead of him automatically sucking the health away from one of your characters, now it's even more difficult. You have to sacrifice a character to feed the Lich. But when you do, you get a soul essence to your hand, which is a card in your hand, which is going to give a +1/+1 to all your creatures until the end of the turn, which can be very significant. And if you play more than one at once, that's going to be a huge buff that really could be all or nothing. It could be game over for them if you get a big enough buff there to push all your units forward. The reconstructor is the next one to face a change. It's difficult to say whether this one is a nerf or a buff because there are some benefits to the changes that have been made. He now has 3 attack, 3 health, still costs 3 mana though, and his entrance ability now, instead of creating the units on the table for you to use straight away, they go straight into your discard pile, which can be really good because then turn 4 or 5 you can play your Royal Crypt Guardian to duplicate some of them, but you don't have those bodies on the board already. However, you are going to buff any others that you've already played. So if you play an Apprentice Necromancer on turn 2 and then follow up with your Reconstructor on turn 3, then the skeleton that spawned the turn before is going to be buffed instantly to be much stronger for the attack it makes. Necromancy has had a nerf too. Now you summon a creature from your graveyard for half its mana cost. It has half its original health, and also, as normal, you banish it when it dies. It was very powerful before, where you could turn 10 spend 3 mana on your necromancy to bring out your 15/15 lumbering striker, and then also on the same turn play Great Revitalization to do net 30 change of health between you and your opponent. It was a very strong move and it was a bit problematic, so this change is curbing that a bit and making necromancy a bit more scalable with the cards that it brings back. And it wasn't just Great Revitalization, it was also things like Boon to Bones, where you can easily put something in your discard pile and then bring it back with necromancy. And I guess it just got a little bit too good value later on and it needs to be curbed. It wasn't just the good value of paying 3 to getting a 10 mana unit out, it was the fact that you could do it way before turn 10. So this is really going to slow down some decks that were taking advantage of that. Next is Mastercraft Flesh Gollum, who has changed quite a bit. It used to be a 10/10, a 10/10/10 that everyone could recognise really easily. Now it still does summon Bone Amalgamates, however it only does 1 a turn automatically, but if you get Death Blow to trigger, which is going to be pretty easy when you've got 7 attack, then you're going to summon an additional Bone Amalgamate. Before, when this guy would die, he would banish both people's graveyards and take them away with him, but that's no longer the case. The next is Vile Bonesmith, who has now become a 1/1 instead. And lastly, it's Vicarius Arcanita, who has received a much needed buff. Before being a 1/2, now starting with 2 attack and 2 health, giving it a little bit of a boost, but more importantly, dropping to 3 mana. This card was always a bit of a problem when there were less cards and Springtrap was in every single deck because it was such good value. Back when Springtrap used to cost 1, it was hugely problematic because you could put this card into play, you could play a few spells, buff it up a bit, but then they just play 1 Springtrap and your whole strategy with it has just gone away. And not just that, there were just better cards to play at 3, 4 or 5 mana instead, especially when this guy only started out as a 1/2. So this buff's pretty promising. I don't know if we're going to see a kind of very heavy spell deck come into play, but we might see it drop into some mastery decks and some kind of aggressive spell decks as a bit of a support, but I don't think it's going to be the leader of some kind of new meta. And that's all of the changes. What do you think of them? Myself, I'm quite happy that all of the Dungeon Masters now have one attack. That suggests that the abilities of them are all equal enough now, whereas before maybe one had extra attack to compensate for the fact that its ability was slightly less powerful. Thanks for stopping by to check out this card update video, and if you liked it, make sure to like, and if you want to, you can always subscribe as well, and I'll see you guys in the next one. See ya!